Welcome back to another episode of Your Life by Design. This episode has been in the works for a while. It's been in the back of my mind. I've been wanting to record it and just haven't gotten around to it, or other topics would come in that I want to record or interview or launches that I was having. But right now, feels like the right time to record this episode. So this is all about universal laws. And one thing you may not know is there are laws to the universe of how the universe works. And I first heard about these universal laws probably 5-6 years ago. And some of them literally changed the way I looked at things. At that time, I remember feeling, and I still can get into this, I think a lot of us can, in this place of jealousy and looking at other people and why are they, this is at the time I was working with a MLM company, and I'm like, why are they moving up and I'm not? What is it that they have that I don't have? Just constantly in that comparison mode, which honestly leaves you in this place of lack and not feeling good about yourself. And it's like self-sabotage, right? I mean, I talk a lot about that in a masterclass that I taught recently called Fuck the Fear, and I am making it still available if you want it. So I'll post that in the notes, but if you go to Instagram and click on the link, the Fuck the Fear, you can get it from there. So it's already a pre-recorded. It'll just be sent to you directly. You can just watch it at your own convenience. But I remember listening to these laws as I was listening to a podcast, and I decided to write every single one of them down. There was 12 of them that she went over. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is incredible. And it completely shifted the way I looked at things. I've since realized that there are a lot more universal laws out there. I've had one person who, I can't remember what her training was, but she was she taught about it, she was trained in it, and she said I can't remember how many she said, but there's a lot more. And so I'm only going to go into 12 of them in this episode. Feel free to explore them more. I think it's incredible to know that there's a law governing the universe. For example, would be law of karma would be one example, but I think that might be law of cause and effect. Actually, we will go into that one. So we're going to go into the 12 different laws. I'm going to briefly talk about them, not into too much detail, because you can figure that out yourself. And I'll tell you which ones are my favorite it's just completely changing. But I feel like these laws, when I lean back into these laws, there's a sense of release that happens where I'm like, okay, I'm taken care of. Or, okay, I meant to do what what desires are placed in my heart. And I think it's just a really good reminder for everyone. So let's dive into it. Okay, let's dive into it. So the first universal law that I'm going to talk about is law of divine oneness. And this was one where I'm like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment just went off in my head. So basically it says we are all connected divinely, right? We're all one. We're part of one source. And there's what's called quantum entanglement. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this in his books, where, one particle comes in contact with another and you're forever entangled. So you meet someone and the particles are forever entangled. So you might think about them sometime, or you might take on their energy, which is why cord cutting is so important. But the law of divine oneness is we are, like I said, we're all connected. What can be possible for one person can also be possible for you, because we're all from the same source. And when I've talked about this before, I know I talked about this in the Fuck the Fear Masterclass, but when we see someone having success and we feel jealousy, or we have these negative feelings about it, you're basically associating those negative feelings with success. So subconsciously, why would you want to go after success if success creates these negative feelings, right? And law of divine oneness kind of just tells you if this person can do it, so can you. So use that opportunity to celebrate that person's success, because you're actually celebrating your future success. So this was a game changer for me when I heard that. And I first found out, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So instead of me being triggered by that, how about I celebrate and then, celebrate that future version of myself who also has those successes too. The next one is the law of vibration. So this is everything vibrates at a certain frequency, is constantly emitting into the universe. And this is the basis of alignment, right? So in order to become and call things into your life, you need to be an energetic match for it. So this is relating to like feelings, beliefs, actions all operate at a frequency. And when we talk about like becoming an energetic match for something that you're calling into your life, certain things vibrate at a higher frequency than others. And so if you're calling in some really, big things that are like going to up level your life, that's going to be a really big energetic shift. And in order to be an energetic match, you have to then vibrate at that frequency as well. And that's like doing the inner work, clearing off any of those negative frequencies that are holding you back. So it's basically kind of like law of attraction, but not, it's like, I think the precursor to the law of attraction. It's like you becoming this energetic match. Everything vibrates at this certain frequency. It's just the concept that everything vibrates at a certain frequency. The next one is law of attraction. It's called, and also known as like law of magnetism. And it's basically like attracts like. So law of vibration is knowing that everything has an energetic match. Law of attraction is like attracts like. That high vibration attracts that high vibration. And it is a foundational law. It's basically a precursor to everything else. So when we're feeling lack, right? I mean, it's okay to have these down days and feelings of like negativity and like things are like not working out in your favor. I mean, we're human, we're going to go through the spectrum of emotions, but the thing is, if we're stuck in that nothing's going to help me, nothing's going to work out for me, and stay stuck in that day after day after day after day after day, and not do things to clear it, not do the subconscious mind work, not do the movement, not do the alchemy to clear it, then you eventually become an energetic match for those things. And so what I often see, and this might trigger someone, which is okay, because triggers are just a sign that it's a sign that we need to like go deeper and clear something. But if I see someone having a really, really like crappy attitude, like lack mindset, like victim mentality, usually they're broke. And it's because of that whole concept of that like attracts like, right? That low frequency, low vibration is attracting a lack life. That lack mindset attracts that lack life. And I see that over and over and over again. And one of the quickest ways to raise your vibration, if you go back to law of vibration and become an energetic match, is through forgiveness and gratitude. Those are two huge, like alchemizing feelings that you can have that puts you in, that raises your vibration. You feel it. I mean, even if you do like a gratitude rampage where like you go through everything and you express gratitude for everything that you have, like even things that you currently have, like fingernails or, your hair or your clothes or a car to drive. And then you start thinking about things you're calling in, like that's putting you in this high vibe state. We've all had those feelings. And I'm not saying that we have to stay in a high vibe state all the time, because that's toxic positivity. But what I am saying is forgiveness and gratitude are big, huge alchemy feelings where it clears and raises your vibration. And it helps you move out of what low vibration state you're in. And you can, like I said, you can have a really shitty day, have an awful day, have your moment, but you can also clear it and then step into a higher vibration. So almost like being in that duality, holding space for both, which is definitely possible. Okay, the next was law of cause and effect. And I believe this one is also known as law of karma. So it's basically you reap what you sow. So every action has an equal opposite reaction. So, the decisions that we make, the actions that we take provide the results that we get, right? And the effect tends to be bigger than the cause. So your beliefs and like the things that you're shifting, the effect from that is actually going to be bigger than what you did to get there, than the thoughts and the actions that you took. And it's also law, from what I've heard from a shaman, is that law of cause and effect is actually a boundary to make our world better. And it's not about people pleasing. It's about making sure that we're doing the right things, that we're putting in the right energy into the world, so then we can be rewarded, properly. Okay, another one is a law of inspired action. And I love this law. A lot of people think that like law of attraction is all you need. Think positive thoughts and positive things will happen to you. Constantly have gratitude and like incredible things will happen to you. Well, no, those are important things to do, but you also have to clear the limiting beliefs that are not serving you. You also have to clear off what doesn't belong to you, what's not for you. And part of the things with like clearing is following inspired action. So inspired action would be like, you have like this idea to go do something and they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. If you tie in human design with it, you follow your authority, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that feels amazing. Or that if you are a manifestor, it's like, that might just be like something that you're really inspired to do. If you're a generator or manifesting generator, you get that sacral hit, like, I want to do that. And so it's like following that inspired action to go after what we want, what is inspiring us. And it can be, like I said, make that phone call, write that blog post, take a walk turn down a certain corner of the street, whatever that is. And I'll tell you from what I've heard and from my own experience as well, when you follow those inspired actions, you get those inspired actions much more frequently. You are basically sending that message out to the universe that you're listening and you're ready to be guided. And when you don't follow those inspired actions, they tend to come less frequently. So something to think about. Okay, law of transmutation. This is another one of my favorites. It's the basis of energy turning into matter. So it makes manifestations possible, but it's basically also higher frequencies have higher power over lower frequencies. So through this law, things that are vibrating at a lower frequency, when it is around higher frequencies, will just start taking on that frequency and start vibrating, which is why you are the sum of the 5 people you're around. It's because you take on that energy, right? And when you are around people who are doing the work, who are living that life that is lighting them up, who are living a life by their design, your energy will start echoing that and start reflecting that. So it'll transmute. And like you can transmute darker energy or low vibration into high vibration. We do that all the time. And we do that with Reiki. We do that with prayer. You do that with gratitude. You do that with cord cutting. You do that with visualization. You do that with movement. It's like you are transmuting the energy into something good. Okay, law of correspondence is also known as the law of mirrors. So everything is a reflection of what is going on inside us. And we can find out what's going on internally by having an awareness of the patterns that we attract. And I've talked about this before. I know I've talked about this, and I taught a beliefs masterclass called All About the Evidence. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And if you're not quite sure what your inner world is showing you, look what's going on in your outer world, because it is that correspondence, right? The physical plane is a mirror of the energetic plane, and other people are reflections of ourselves. So if we're feeling jealousy of something, if we're jealous of someone, that's an indication that they're going after something that we want. We just don't think it's possible. So everything in our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And when we understand that, I feel like that's when things start to shift. That's when your perspective shifts. That's when you are motivated to do the inner work, because then you start seeing it in your outer world and it becomes super fun. Okay, so another law, universal law, is law of relativity. And that one is each soul incarnates certain lessons to master in each lifetime. And I see this in the human design chart. I see this when I do activate intensives with people. I see this when I'm on a journey with someone using their human design, or even I've worked with shamans, I've worked with energy healers, I've worked with some incredible practitioners. And I know for a fact that we come into this world incarnating with a specific lesson. And it's all about perspectives, right? Lessons will show up as obstacles, challenges, problems, and roadblocks. And the key is to gain awareness of it, right? That it's not as bad as it seems. There's a lesson behind it. And I remember growing up, my mom would often say to me that the universe will always be throwing you the same curveballs and the same experiences until you learn your lesson, and then it moves on. And it's funny because I think my mom knew all this stuff, and I would get certain lessons from her, but I don't think she realized how much. I don't think she was speaking the same. Like, I don't think she knew exactly what I know, but it's funny that I learned this. Like, as I'm going through this now, or learning what I know now, I'm like, oh, my mom used to talk about this all the time. I don't know if she realized that, like, this is something that she would talk about, or I don't think she realized that to the depth of this, but I grew up with that language. And so it's not as bad as it seems, it's all relative, right? It's like these lessons are all about perspective. And I also know that when a soul doesn't learn its lesson in this lifetime, when the soul passes on and incarnates into another body for a next life, they will pick up and learn that lesson as well. So they don't get to learn their own lesson until the past lessons get learned. And from my understanding is each time a lesson is not learned, the lessons, the experiences, the obstacles, the challenges, the problems get bigger until you're like, holy crap, I need to look at this. Which is why it's so important for me to do the work to clear things up for myself so I don't pass anything on to my kids and they can learn their own lesson that they are incarnated to learn. Okay, law of polarity. Everything in us has polar opposites, and polarity creates clarity. I say this all the time. I remember being so, like, things used to bug me so much when things wouldn't work out. When I would try something and it wouldn't work out. But when I realized about this law, right? There's no failing back, it's failing forward. Polarity creates clarity. When things don't work out, it tells you what you don't want, so you can be more clear on what you do want. And I have a quote here from Napoleon Hill that says, every adversity, failure, and every headache carries with it the seed of equivalent or greater benefit. And what that basically means is when we learn through our failures, when we work through what's holding us back, we have something that's greater on the other side for us. And I remember going through a really challenging time. Like, so my husband and I are Canadian, but we're living in the US. And I remember getting green cards, and it was a pain in the butt. The US, I've heard it's gotten worse, but even at the time, the US immigration was just a mess. And it took a really long time. It was like so many headaches and things getting lost and things that needed to get done. And I remember my hairdresser saying to me that he believes that, like, when the challenges are big, that means the rewards are going to be even bigger. And I think he, without even realizing it, he's referring to this law of polarity. And I believe that to be true. When you have things that just fall apart, it's usually because things on the other side are going to be so much better for you. Okay. So law of balance. This refers to masculine and feminine energies. I talked about this when I interviewed Suzanne Venus on a few episodes ago, where we talk about the power of the women's cycle and the masculine and feminine energies. And when we say masculine and feminine energies, we're not talking about masculine and feminine gender. We're talking about the energies. And each person has both energies. And as a woman, I'm talking about a biological woman. As a woman, we have both, feminine and masculine energies, but when we are in our divine selves, we are in our divine feminine energy. And that's all about receiving. That's all about nurturing. And then the masculine energy is all about productivity and doing. And so when we are in more of that masculine energy of go, 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 we'll get burnt out. Same thing with men. They have both of those energies as well. But if they're in like not doing as much and like kind of like laid back and like being taken care of, they're in more of that feminine energy. And then they can get burnt out. Men need to be more in that masculine energy of doing productivity, but not in a way where they feel like they have to constantly go, 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 go without rest. That rest is important too. So that's that feminine energy. So that's the balance. So the law of balance, it refers to the masculine and feminine energy, and how the feminine energy represents surrender, patience, and flow, and masculine energy represents action, will, and persistence. And we have both, and we need to be able to balance both. Okay, I think the last one is law of patterns. So law of patterns basically says it follows a rhythm and has seasons and cycles. And so we see this on Earth. We see there are 4 seasons on Earth. And even if you might be living in a place where you may not have a winter, there is definitely like a dying off of things. There is like energetically, there is a difference in like a summer. And so men have 24-hour cycles, women have 28-day cycles. And I think it's so cool and not a coincidence, and just very much speaks to how connected women are to the earth, and how nurturing women are when we are in our divine feminine self, and why would we think nothing is possible for us, or why we think we can't go after our desires. We are literally part of Earth. So women have 4 cycles, 4 phases to their cycle. Earth has 4 seasons, and the moon has 4 phases. And like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. So law of patterns also says that patterns we experience in our life, where internal conflicts or internal alignment, will manifest as a pattern. And so the longer we ignore a pattern, the more pervasive it gets. So it's becoming aware of that pattern that we have. And this also goes back to law of relativity, about how what's on the inside is reflected on the outside. And so we need to recognize what that pattern is, so we can change it if we need to. Okay, the last law I'm going to talk about is the law of free will. And I think this is an important law, that I think if you don't follow this law, and if you violate this law, it can put a karmic debt on your lifeline. And so basically, everyone born, while we are born with abundance, while we are born with our gifts, while we are born to live an abundant lifestyle, we have free will, and we can choose whatever we want. And so we can choose to live a life that's not abundant. We can choose to live a life in victim mentality. We can choose to live a life that doesn't serve us, because we have that free will. And when you interfere with someone's free will, you are putting a karmic debt on your own lifeline. So, for example, I've worked with energy healers where I've said, can you do a session on someone that I know? And they will ask, from an energetic spiritual, they'll ask their soul. And if their soul says no, they're like, no, I can't do it. Because if they go ahead and do it anyways, they can be experiencing a karmic debt. Or if you interfere with your partner's journey, I think I might have talked about this on another episode, but if you interfere with your partner's journey, and this is something I'm totally guilty at, where trying to get my partner to see things differently, trying to get my partner to look like I'm interfering with that journey, that could interfere with my karmic debt, right? That could put a karmic debt on my lifeline. And so it's knowing that my partner has his own journey, he needs to figure things out. I have my own journey, I need to figure things out for myself. And when we interfere with that without the permission of the other person, that could be having an issue for our soul. And so we cannot change people as it violates this law. We cannot change people if we don't have their permission. I even have this energy worker who, when she works with me, she'll even come out and say, can I do this on you? I'm like, well, yes, clearly I'm here. But she wants me to say yes, because she won't move forward unless she has a yes. And it's a way of protecting her soul. So I think this is important to just remember, because so many of us want to change people around us, because it's hard to see people around us suffer. It's hard to see people around us doing things when we know that there's a better way, but that's their journey. And so that's the law of free will. Okay, so those are the 12 laws I'm going to talk about. There's way more. You guys can Google some. I know there's programs out there that teach about the different universal laws. But like I said, when I hear them, when I read them, even now going over them, it's so comforting for me to know that there's this law of governance, universal law of governance, that even if there are people, who are doing ill will on the world, there is a karmic, it'll come back to them. They're interfering with free will. And so I think it's just I think the universal laws it's just beautiful to remind yourself of them. All right. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and message me on Instagram. I'd love to know what you think of this episode, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.